All right, welcome back for the second part of the Beast Morpher Rough Rant. We'll continue on where we left off with the supposed destruction of Evox and his forces and the possession of the mayor. It's not established exactly how long it has been after the events of the first part's finale. I'm going to assume it's been at least a few months because everyone is being super chill. They're all having a good time because Blaze's evil avatar was destroyed. He comes out of his coma as well. We see that Roxy and Ravi are on a date. It's actually funny. Like Ravi is in the park with Roxy, and and they're like feeding each other strawberries, and then he's like, "Oh, I have to go back to Grid Battle Force." And what ends up happening is he literally goes to kiss her, but he just kisses the side of her head, and I'm just like, dude. It was like, what's the point of that? You've established that they're, boyfriend and girlfriend. Let them kiss. I know that's a thing in Power Rangers where it's just like, oh no, we can't have them kiss on the lips. Ooh, we got to do the side head. They established that Devin is, I think, on good terms with his dad. They had a little bit of friction. I'll again go into that in a little bit with the character details. But what ends up happening is basically everyone's enjoying the peace. The mayor has been really gung-ho about getting more Morphex towers built all around the world. Like he got one made in Paris, I believe Canada, a few other places. So he is definitely getting that underway. However, Steel believes that what's his name? Evox is still alive. It is funny because Steel thinks like a conspiracy theorist. Like he literally has like the board with like the different pictures with the little red ropes tied around it. And he's like, oh yeah, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot sightings, all of this clearly leads back to Evox. And the funny thing is that some of the stuff that he's talking about makes sense, but he also added in like the stupid stuff. So you're kind of like, how accurate is this in reality? But most of the other Rangers are like, no, he's dead. We don't have to worry about that. But Zoe's like, well, we should at least listen to him. And he does point out a good logical thing where he's like, hey, there was this like a leak at this Morphex tower, and all the Morphex is missing, and there's no reports on it at all. And the only thing Devin can say is like, oh, well, my father, the mayor, set that up, so it should be fine. And Steel points out, it's like, well, then where's the Morphex? Like, it's gone. Like, it didn't come back. But they just, again, they're kind of like, oh, you're just being paranoid, Steel. But he's very hell-bent on, letting them know that Evox is still around. He ends up taking them to a area where there was a Scrozzle sighting. But it turns out that the Scrozzle sighting was most likely just like a weird tree log thing with the pic, and it was just like a smudgy picture kind of type of sighting. But then it turns out, no, it actually is true. Scrozzle is like 10 feet to the left, basically. And they're like, oh, crap, he is back. And they end up fighting Scrozzle and his forces as they're trying to get more Morphex. And then here comes the part where I don't understand why the villains don't send in more giant robots, because Scrozzle sends in like 2 giant robots at once. And I'm like, why didn't you do that early? Like, why haven't you done that before? And there are other episodes too later on. I won't go into detail of what exactly goes on with those episodes because they're not really important. But they're in those episodes, he sends out like 5 giant robots. So why didn't they do that before? That doesn't... very inconsistent writing. But they're able to defeat the Scrozzle. This confirms that Evox is still around. I wonder where he is. And they kind of try to play up the mystery of that, of like, where is Evox? What's going on with the mayor? But it's like, we already saw that. You gave it away by showing his hand turn purple, get the purple energy line. So there's no point of like pretending that we wouldn't know that the mayor is Evox. But yeah, they're trying to play that up. And then in the following episode, I don't even get why they brought back Good, Roxy, and Blaze. They don't do anything. Like, they only show up basically after they are revived for a total of 3 episodes out of 22. And for those episodes, and yeah, when in those episodes, they don't really do anything. So they're, again, it just kind of comes down to like, what was the point? Basically, what ends up happening is they're revived, and they're trying to help out, but then Scrozzle shows up, uses his scanner to scan them, and then it's revealed that the villains have a new base in a different dimension filled with these weird crystal things that I don't think they've ever established where they are, but they're just there. And he uses the scanner to essentially revive the evil versions of Roxy and Blaze, except now they have highlights and have slightly different color schemes. Roxy has purple and Blaze has yellow. That's about it. That's the only thing different about them in terms of their normal human forms. It's weird too because when they transform, Roxy is the same type of monster, but now her color scheme is purple. So I'm like, okay, so that's that, and I assume that Blaze will basically be the same, except for he'll be yellowish. No, Blaze's transformation is completely different. He kind of looks like a fencer almost, like he has this like little cape thing. He has like a top knot. He's got more of the monster form similar to Roxy, and he's like has this very fencer like fighting style. I don't get it. Like, it feels like they should have just used that outfit from the get-go instead of the more interesting looking evil ranger type deal. But no, that's what he looks like now. But yeah, they're back, but they're essentially the exact same characters. That's about it. The difference is that they can be destroyed multiple times, and then Scrozzle can use his machine to bring them back to life. Right, and they retain all their memories right before they died. But that's about it for them. Again, it's it kind of goes back to just the same formulaic thing of they need to find out where Evox is. Evox is trying to get more energy, except for now he's trying to hide the fact that he is in the mare. And what ends up happening, like an idiot, Evox, like the way it works with him is like if he runs out of power, he turns back from the mare to his evil, robot body form. And so he needs regular doses of Morphex, and for some stupid reason, he ends up meeting Roxy to give him Morphex in the middle of out in the open, and Zoe ends up seeing this, and he's able to transform back into his human form, but Zoe catches him with Roxy, and so he has to pretend like Roxy is attacking him. And because of this, the Rangers are now like on high alert and are like, oh no, we got to make sure that the mayor isn't in any danger. So they're constantly bodyguarding him. And he's like, oh crap, like I'm going to run out of energy soon. And when that happens, they're going to figure out that I'm Evox. And what ends up happening hilariously he he's like, okay, well, I need you guys on bodyguard. If you're like, oh, if you guys are going to be on bodyguard duty, let's have Nate and Zoe, be my bodyguards. And remember how they were, Zoe and Nate are totes in love, guys. Yeah, I forgot too. They're commissioned to be his bodyguards, which doesn't make sense because Nate is like their head scientist person. So you would think that he would be in his lab constantly. Like they wouldn't have him out in the field as much as possible, but no, he's bodyguard material. But he ends up, but because they're so in love, and it was kind of funny too because Steele knows that they're secretly dating and tries to push them together and do like meet cute things. I do like Steele a lot. And he ends up causing them to do almost a Lady and the Tramp moment where they're like eating noodles while watching the mayor at like a big shindig dinner type thing. And they end up eating from the same bowl, and they eat a noodle, and it's connected, and they almost kiss again, but of course they can't. But they get distracted for like 10 milliseconds, and the mayor books it, and they go after him, and he's almost able to get the energy from Roxy and Blaze, but the Rangers show up too quickly, so he's not able to. And the commander gets super pissed off at Nate and Zoe because of this. Tells them like, why are you dating? This is the reason why you guys don't date. And they're like, oh, we're sorry. We didn't mean it. I guess we have to break up now. And then they go and defend the mayor again. And they almost die flat out. Like, Roxy ends up like getting Zoe, pinned to the ground and is about to kill her. But Nate jumps in and is able to take the blast that was going to kill Zoe. And this convinces the commander that like, oh, you guys are actually more in sync, and it's your connections that make you stronger. And I'm just like, no, like that technically was worse. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't date. I'm saying using that as an example is a bad one because that just showed that they're not using their brains. They're just using their gut instinct feelings for each other, because now instead of having one ranger down, you have two rangers down, and they could have both died because of that. So that's not a good example as to why they should be dating, but okay, they're totes fine dating now. But what ends up happening is the mayor is still unable to get the Morphex, and eventually he is revealed to be Evox. Shocker, I know. He's revealed to be Evox to everyone. Everyone's shocked, and they're trying to devise a way to stop him. Basically, everyone except for Nate is like, okay, we got to stop him. They're kind of disregarding the fact that he is also Nate's dad. And Nate ends up, not Nate, sorry, Devin's dad. They kind of disregard that. Nate ends up making like this device that shoots like an arrow, and if it hits the target, it encases them in this basically like diamond hard ice. So basically, if they hit Evox with it while he's still, fused with the mayor, Devin's dad is essentially dead. So Devin is trying his hardest to find a way of getting them separated. He ends up finding a way. Here's another aspect that they kind of touch upon, and then just kind of drop it into your lap all at once. They've established that they know about the other Rangers, even other Rangers from other dimensions, and kind of built Grid Battle Force around knowing this knowledge. And they have this vault that has a bunch of old Ranger stuff in it. This I can get to a point, But the problem is that some of the stuff in there either A, shouldn't exist anymore, or B, why would you have that? Like, there are literal morphers in there. And I'm like, wouldn't the other Rangers need those? Or like, why would they give you those? Like, some of them are from, again, a different dimension. Why would let you have these devices? But yeah, they have them. And he goes into the vault kind of looking for stuff that will help. He ends up actually contacting Dr. K from Power Rangers RPM. I didn't see that. Again, that kind of falls into the Overdrive category of like, I know about it, but I didn't watch it, so I don't know 100% of everything on it, but I have like a rough idea. But he talks to Dr. K, and then she tells him about like this other device that the Dino Charge Rangers used to split up Zeno Wing from his evil counterpart, so maybe that'll work. And they're able to Devin is able to find the device in the vault. They go and set it up, and they're able to again fairly easily separate the mayor from Evox. And it's revealed that Evox, because he is been combined with the mayor's human DNA is corrupting his data virus form. So like the more he is in the mayor's body, the more weaker he becomes. So it's just like, why would you want to do that? I guess it'll be kind of sort of revealed why he took that risk later on, or basically at the end of the series. But it's just kind of like, why would you do that if it's basically killing you? But they're able to be separated. Let me see here. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just making sure I'm not technically meeting. I'm skipping a lot. Again, like I said, a lot of the other episodes are just kind of irrelevant. I mean, you can have some goofy, fun time things here and there, but for the most part, they're pretty bland. Let me see here. Yep, no, that's it. For at least that part. Next part is kind of this weird crossover episode. There's a villain named, there's apparently a signal that the Grid Battle Force received from space that unless I blinked and missed it, it apparently happened off screen, and it's a message basically saying like, hey, this evil villain named Ryjack is coming, and he's going to destroy everyone, so be careful. So the Rangers are looking out for Ryjack. They end up running into this robot-looking guy, stealing some Morphex, and they assume that he is Ryjack, but he is actually not. Ryjack went to the other dimension and is talking to Evox, and he reveals that he has this device that if he has an item from an owner, if he has a object, he can revive the original owner, and he'll be under his control, and he ends up using it to revive Vargile. And so he ends up working with Evox in hopes to get a hold of the vault that has all the Ranger stuff in it, because it's got a bunch of villain weapons and whatnot in it. So if he can get a hold of that, he can make like an army of villains. So that's what Ryjack is wanting. Evox, of course, is like, oh yeah, I'll totally help you, but he very much does not hide the fact that he's just going to betray Ryjack. But Ryjack is just trying to steal stuff, Morphex for Venjix. Sorry. Not Venjix. Evox. I don't know why I said Venjix. Evox is trying to steal energy for Evox. And that's basically all he does. The robot-looking guy turns out to be like a space cop. I don't know if he's from a different Sentai series. I don't think he's from Power Rangers at all. but he kind of looks like a VR trooper. I'm not 100% sure. But he reveals that, again, he's a space cop and he's going to help out the Rangers. And then in the following episode, they're able to defeat Ryjax. He blows up. The cop is turns out to be like a cyborg. And he's like, oh, I can't go back to my family because I'm a cyborg and I'm not a person anymore because I have cybernetic implants, which is dumb. But after they defeat Ryjax, Nate is like, oh, hey, I changed the morphing, DNA splicer thing so that it'll put more human DNA into you and it'll turn you back into a full human. And I'm like, that doesn't work. Like, how would that work like that? Like, I get it if he was like part insect or like some type of, monster or animal, but these are cybernetic implants. Like, that's not part of his DNA. That's just part of, they just shoved it into his body. So just putting in more DNA into him wouldn't necessarily do anything. But no, it for some reason, it causes him to become he becomes a real boy now. And he goes home. And that's it for that guy. Did not care for him. He just goes like, yep, thanks guys, I helped you kill Ryjax, bye. And that's all he does. After that, it's revealed that Ryjax's ship is hidden on Earth. It's literally in the middle of a field, but it's got a bunch of weapons and items from various villains. Again, some of the stuff doesn't make sense how he got it. Like, the only way he could have gotten it is if he went to other dimensions. But yeah, he has a bunch of weapons on his ship. The Rangers are looking for it, and also the villains are looking for the ship. Zoe ends up finding the ship, and they tell her to wait until until everyone else arrives. But like an idiot, she's just like, oh, I'm just going to go on the ship. And she ends up going on to, like, steps on the platform. And just that alone causes the ship's self-destruct mode to activate. And it blows up. And so now everything's like in pieces. All the villain weapons are everywhere. And she gets up and she sees this figure. And it turns out to be Keeper from Dino Charge. But she doesn't realize that and throws this like obedience collar thing on his neck. But then it's revealed that who he is, and she's like, "Oh no, I accidentally threw this on Keeper. I'm so sorry." But the other Rangers show up, and they're like, "Oh, like how could you do that to Keeper?" And it's weird too, again, because like Keeper is established to be from another dimension, and he's just there, like he just shows up. But they end up taking him back to... They're about to take him back to Grid Battle Force, but the villains show up. They grab... they're able to kidnap Keeper. They're not able to keep... to get the other weapons from the wreckage of the ship. But they are able to... get Keeper, and they also get a sword, and it turns out the sword is Snide's sword from Dino Charge. And they still have the gun that Ryjack had that revived people. So they're able to revive Snide with it. So he's revived, and they still have Keeper, and they really want to get the rest of the weapons, but all the Rangers were able to collect all of them. However, they still have Keeper, so they contact them, say, hey, we're going to do a trade. You have to give us the weapons, and in return, we'll give you Keeper. And this is where the other Dino Charge Rangers show up. Well, 4 of them anyway. The 4 that they could get to come. It was like Coda. I don't remember all. I didn't actually watch Dino Charge, so I know kind of what happens. Again, knows what happens in it, but I don't have extensive knowledge of it. But it's I know Coda, the Red Ranger, the Black Ranger, and the Yellow Ranger from Dino Charge show up, and they're just like, "Hey, we're looking for Keeper. Like, what? Where is he?" And they're the Beast Morpher Rangers tell them where it's happened. So they decide that they're going to team up, and they end up going to the drop-off area. They bring the weapons, and very quickly it goes south. Basically, they throw the weapons on the ground. The villains collect them in 10 seconds, and then, of course, they are not going to give Keeper back. And they end up fighting. It's really kind of boring. What ends up happening is Evox uses the beam to revive basically all the villains, like the main villains from Dino Charge. So Sledge, Poisandra, a couple other ones come back to life, and he sends them, and for some reason they are instantly obedient to Evox. Like that didn't make sense. It made sense originally why they were listening to like Ryjack and them, because they had like obedience collars, the things that they put on Keeper, but these guys don't. So they're just like instantly they get revived, and then they're like, oh hey, we're alive again, cool. And then Evox is just like, hey, you're gonna work for me, and they're like, okay. And these aren't like the grunt guys either. Like these are like the main villain characters, and they're just cool with this. And I'm like, why would they be fine with this? Whatever. But yeah, they fight. It's fight. And really, the Dino Charge Rangers don't really interact all that much with the Beast Morpher characters. They're just kind of there. They just fight. Two of the other Rangers, the pink and green Dino Charge Rangers, show up through a portal. And I'm assuming that they couldn't get the actual actors into to shoot, because they have their voices, but you never see them outside of their morphs. They're just there. And like after they defeat the villains, because of course they defeat the villains, it shows just the four who originally showed up, who they could get outside of the outfits, and the pink and green Rangers aren't there. So it's clear that's like, okay, so they couldn't actually get them on set. But it's also funny, too, because they defeat the bad guys, but they don't destroy them. So, like, all the Dino Charge villains are still alive, and they're still working for Evox. But the Dino Charge Rangers, once they get Keeper back, they're just like, all right, cool, peace. We have our own place we got to live with, we got to deal with, so bye. It's like, jerks? Like, what the hell? Like, it's all your villains. I get that the Beast Morpher Rangers kind of screwed up a little bit, but like, you guys can't stay and help? That's so crappy. But yeah, they all leave, and then the next episode is kind of annoying, because the whole episode is basically the villains are going they're wanting to get more older villains revived, and they've modified the reviver gun thing, and if they use a bunch of diamonds with it, they can power up the villain that they revive. The only problem is it takes so much diamonds that they only have enough for one right now. And basically the entire episode is them figuring out which villain they're going to revive, and they just keep playing clips from older seasons showing like who these villains were, and some, like almost all of them, keep picking villains that were turned into good guys at one point. Like one is Korag from Mystic Force, who became a good guy. Astronema, again, became a good guy. They considered Lord Zed, but they're like, oh, he would be too evil and betray Evox. And then they're like, there was one that I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool, is they get like one of the data cards for the Psycho Rangers, Psycho Ranger Red. And I'm like, and they show the clip with him, and I'm like, yeah, that would be a neat one. Like, I would be totally down for that. And he doesn't become good. And like, but they don't end up reviving him because he was too obsessed with killing the Red Ranger, and that caused him to die. And it's just like, what? Like, your whole point of reviving them is to destroy the Rangers. Who cares? And you're going to power him up. He was a very powerful enemy. Why wouldn't you revive him? For that reason. And yeah, so they throw his card. They're like, nope, we just got to keep looking. And that's really all that happens in that episode. There is another thing where, like, there's a monster that is stealing the diamonds, and the Rangers got to find it and defeat it. But it does the dumbest, like, pattern for them to figure out what they're doing. Like, he's stealing from different jewelry stores in alphabetical order. So he starts with one that starts with an A, then he goes to B, and then he goes to C, and then they were like, oh wait, we got to go to the one that starts with a D, and then they go and they find him, and they're able to easily defeat him. And while they're defeating him, Poisandra and a couple of the other Dino Charge villains go there, and they end up getting destroyed. And then by the end of the episode, Sledge is depressed because Poisandra is dead, and they still haven't figured out a villain. And then Evox just shows up and is just like, you guys are idiots here. This is the one I'm going to revive. And he decides on Goldar. I guess that's okay. I mean, I would have went with Psycho Ranger Red because he's way more powerful than Goldar. Like, Goldar's iconic, but he's not, like, super duper powerful. But yeah, they decide to go with Goldar. They revive him, and the power-up sequence thing ends up short-circuiting the gun, of course, and it blows up. But they are able to revive Goldar. He doesn't look exactly like Goldar. He's like a more beefed-up, more powerful version of Goldar. He calls himself Goldar Maximus. He looks fine. I don't hate his design. You can still see the Goldar influence, but it is a different outfit, of course. But Goldar ends up killing Sledge instantly. Like, Sledge is like, oh, I don't think he's that tough. And then Goldar just beats the crap out of him. And then Evox goes like, kill him. And he kills him. And I'm like, why would you kill him? He's your ally. It's like, yeah, he's not great, but he's still pretty strong. And you need all the allies you can get to kill the Rangers. But yeah, they just killed Sledge. Basically, all the Dino Charge villains are dead except for Snide. That's it. But what ends up happening is in the following, this is the last episode where it's the kind of crossover episode. They end up, the villains end up going to the Dino Charge universe. They're fighting them, and they're trying to steal their energems. And the Dino Charge Rangers call the Beast Morpher Rangers, ask for help, and they end up going to that dimension to help out. And basically just what ended up happening is everyone except for Devin goes there because he was out and about at the time when they got the distress signal, so they immediately went to help. And they all get beaten. And Devin comes back to the headquarters, and the commander tells him what's going on. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to need to do something, but we need help. And he ends up going to like the Morphex tower to get access to the morphing grid. And he calls for help, and he ends up getting in contact with the original Red Ranger. What was his name? I don't think I wrote down his name. Well, whatever. It's the original Red Ranger, which was kind of neat. I'm like, okay, that's cool. He shows up and he's like, okay, I'm going to help you guys. And him and Devin go to the Dino Charge universe. And this is such a crappy crossover with the Beast Morph. It feels almost like because they didn't have a crossover episode in Dino Charge, they ended up like making up for it in this season, because what it feels like 100% they didn't care about the Beast Morphers because they don't interact really with the Dino Charge Rangers or any of the other Rangers that end up showing up. What ends up happening is Evox, using the knowledge he got from Keeper, is going to make a super powerful Zord. He's going to use all the DNA from a bunch of different dinosaurs, throw in a couple of Energems in it, and then this will create a new Zord. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like an interesting idea. And he's going to call it the Chimera Zord. And while he's doing that, the Beast Morpher Rangers are looking for him and trying to stop him. And then the Dino Charge Rangers are facing off against Goldar and the other enemy forces. And then the original Red Ranger, I want to say his name is Rocky, but that might not be him. Don't quote me on that. He shows up too, and he's able to morph into the original Red Ranger from Mighty Morphin, which doesn't make sense because the morphing coin that he had, the power coin he had, was destroyed, so he shouldn't be able to, but whatever, semantics. He gets, and then it's like, now, it's not just us. We've got help. And these two portals open up, and then out of them come all the other Mighty Morphing Rangers, minus Tommy, and then the 3 Dino Thunder Rangers. And they're like, yeah, now you're going to get the full fury of the Dinosaur Rangers. And I'm like, that would be a cool idea if it happened in the Dino Charge and you were able to, make an episode around that, because that is a neat idea. It's like, hey, we have a lot of Dinosaur Rangers, let's have them all team up. But this is Beast Morphers, and the Beast Morpher Rangers do not interact with the other teams at all. They don't even barely interact with the Dino Charge Rangers. So, to call this a team-up episode is almost a lie. But they're able to defeat all the Dino Rangers are able to defeat the villains. They all go, and then Evox evil Zord is created, the Chimera Zord, and it is terrible looking. It's like it could have been cool, but it's basically like a dinosaur body, but its head, it almost looks like a big flower, and then on the rims of the flower are various dinosaur bodies. So it's just like, and it's all CGI. It looks awful. But all the Rangers get their Zords, and they're able to defeat it, and that's it. And then the other Rangers, again, which doesn't make sense because both the Mighty Morphin and the Dino Thunder Rangers lost their powers. They're gone, period, for the most part. I mean, I'm sure someone can probably point out, no, in this episode or in this other crossover episode, it was established they were able to get their powers back. But it doesn't really make sense. And it's also funny, again, because you can tell that you were only able to get the original Mighty Morphin Red, I want to say Rocky guy back, because the other Rangers do not talk. They're just the costumes, and then they immediately go back into their portals and disappear. That's it. They're gone. They're done. That was the crossover episode. Hope you had fun. But yeah, that was that crossover episode, and it's I'm down for a 4-part crossover thing, because that can, be interesting for character interaction and the teams, and playing off of each other. But the entire time, the Beast Morpher Rangers were almost superfluous in their own series. So yeah, again, I kind of feel like they had this idea for it in Dino Charge, but I guess they couldn't do it. And then they were able to do it in this season, and they just decided, screw it. I think they should have waited, because it would have made a lot more sense to do kind of something like this in the next season. Not the next season. No, yeah, it is the next season. The next season, Dino Fury, because, again, they're also dinosaurs. So, and you get all the dinos, but whatever. But that was the crossover episode. But yeah, we're kind of coming towards the end of the series. What ends up happening is Roxy and Roxy and Blaze. Sorry, Roxy and Blaze are going around, and they're able to kind of power themselves up. Roxy's able to power herself up by stealing a DNA scanner, and ends up DNA splicing herself up with a flower, which gives her more power, and like she has like her evil robot form or evil form. Kind of gets like this almost like arm cannon looking flower thing, and then some like flower petals. It looks whatever. And then Blaze powers himself up by just injecting himself up with a crap ton of Morphex. And I'm just like, if you guys could get that powerful, like he becomes so powerful from this that he's able to take on all 5 Rangers by himself. And I'm like, why didn't you guys do that earlier? Like, if you would have done that from the get-go, you would have won. But no, for some dumb reason, they didn't do that. But that's how he gets powered up. He doesn't change in appearance at all from this, though. And then what ends up happening is Roxy, being jealous that Blaze is more powerful than her, finds a new dinosaur fossil, fuses with it, uses the DNA splicer thing again, and fuses herself even further with it, and she becomes this like really, like, it looks terrible, to be perfectly honest. It's like this gestalt of a flower, her robot form, and then like wings and like mouth parts. It doesn't look good. But when she does this ends up actually overloading the machine that revives them every time they die. So by powering herself up, she's destroyed their backup system. So if they die from this point onward, they're dead for real. And in the same episode, she dies. She ends up getting defeated. And Blaze is kind of bummed out by that. And then we're kind of in the in-game part. What ends up happening is they're like, okay, we really need to defeat Evox before he's able to do anything. And they learn that from a like memory disk thing from Roxy's, when she blew up, she like her parts went everywhere because she was still kind of a robot. And they're able to get information from it showing that Evox is going to create a super powerful Giga Drone, which is the evil giant monster things. And he's going to attack, and that's his big plan. And he ends, the Rangers end up talking to Blaze, the real Blaze. And he's like telling Devin that, here's a plan that we can use. And essentially, what the plan is they're going to take Evox when he shows up, throw him into a hangar, fight him, and then after they fight him, lock him up. That's basically the plan for the most part. It does work, but it almost like kills everyone, and they kind of get on Blaze because he's being a dick about it. And it's revealed that it wasn't actually the good Blaze, it was the evil Blaze, which you would think they would have put in measures for that. Like, hey, there's an evil villain that looks like one of our allies. Maybe we should make sure that, they don't switch places. But nope, they didn't think that through. But yeah, Evox has been captured, and it was actually all part of their plan. And they're like, oh no, like what's going to happen? Like, what is he going to do? But they're like, okay, we still got him. So we need to figure out a way to defeat him. And Nate ends up coming up with the blaster that will shoot like a antivirus kind of thing. And they open up the barrier that is holding Evox, and they shoot him a couple of times, and he starts to like kind of filter out, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna kill him. But then of course he is able to download himself onto their computer, and he's trying to get into the morphing grid, and it's really ridiculous because as he downloads himself into the computer, and then like you see his energy moving from device to device, and they're like, oh, we got to destroy all the computers that could potentially give him access to the morphing grid. And they're shooting the computers, but they're shooting the monitors. So I'm thinking, like, he still could access that because you just shot the screen. You didn't actually shoot the computer itself. But of course, they don't follow that rule. But he ends up getting into the vault with all the Power Ranger stuff in it, and he comes out with a morpher, and he's like, yes, now I have everything I need. And he like does something to the morpher. It's like the RPM morpher, and he does something, and then Nate shoots him one more time thinking it'll kill him, but he's able to deflect the blast, and it's revealed that Evox is not just Evox. He is actually what was his name again? I just had it up. Sorry. He's Venjix from RPM, which kind of makes sense, but also kind of doesn't make sense. Venjix in that season, again, I have cursory knowledge of it, but from what I can tell, he died, but he was kind of in one of the Morphers, as kind of like a in credit kind of stinger with that season. But it's revealed what had happened was years ago when Nate was a kid and he was trying to figure out a way to make Power Rangers, and he was experimenting with like DNA and whatnot. His way of trying to figure it out was basically he got all the morphers from the previous Rangers that he just happened to have, and he just stuck snake DNA into each morpher to see if he could get a result, and he ended up putting it into the RPM morpher, and because Venjix was in it, he fused with the snake DNA and was kind of partially revived. He wasn't fully revived, but he was able to escape the morpher and to go into the computer system. And that's where he waited for years until they were able to make the Morphex towers, so that way he could get access to the morphing grid. I like the idea of Venjix to a degree, because it's like, okay, yeah, he's a computer virus, so it would make sense that the computer virus villain is also the previous one. So I was okay with that idea. I don't like how they implemented it, because again, it falls into like when they present it, it's over. This is literally the last episode, and this is like the penultimate episode, and it's just the reveal is just like, oh crap, he's the previous villain. Oh snap. And then that's it. Like, it doesn't really change anything, to be perfectly honest. The fact that he is this villain isn't like, oh man, you could do so much with it. Like, they kind of show what they could have done with this when it's revealed this way. Venjix escapes and is starting to get his other plan set up, and Nate kind of goes into a depression thinking like, oh crap, I just made our villain and he's going to destroy the world, and he's getting super depressed, and they end up contacting Dr. K because she was the one who actually made Venjix, and she comes to their dimension and is like, hey, like, I get where you're coming from, but you can't focus on this. You got to deal with the issue that's at hand. So that, I like that aspect of it. I don't like the fact that, again, it's basically the last episode and it's just like, yep, here you go. That's all the nuance that we're going to be putting into this, because after this, all that happens is Venjix ends up getting into the morphing grid via the towers. They end up coming up, the Rangers are able to come up with this arrow that they can fire that is like an antivirus thing. They use it to kill Evil Blaze, and then they try to do it on Venjix, but he's able to deflect it. And then he's able to access the morphing towers, and all the energy pulls into, from around the world, pulls into the one center Morphex tower. So they're so basically they're screwed. They don't really know what they're going to do. Steel ends up going to the tower where Venjix is, and he gets into the morphing grid power energy beam that Vinchix is in, and stabs him with the arrow, but it doesn't work. It's too late, and Vinchix ends up absorbing him, basically killing him. So they're really bummed, and they're like, well, we have no idea what we're going to do. And Vinchix ends up coming out of the tower as a giant monster, way bigger. Like he's like 10 times the size of the regular monsters. And he's going to destroy the world. And the Rangers are getting into their Zord, and they're like, we got to stop him somehow. And they just like try to poke him essentially. And he, swats him away super easily. That's basically the entire fight, because after that they realize, like, wait a minute, the human DNA weakened him when he was Evox, so maybe it'll work. And they tap into the power of the Morphex, and it causes their DNA to splice into their weapon, I guess, and they stab Vinchix and transfer a crap ton of DNA into him, and that's how he dies. The end. That's it. That's how the villain is defeated. Really, really fast. And like, it took the span of 2 minutes to kill him. It was such a wet fart of a finale. So he dies. The Rangers just kind of come down from the battle, and they're just kind of looking around in the street. And then out of nowhere, Steel is revived because raisins. And not only is he is revived as a human. Again, just for raisins. And everyone's really happy about that. And then it cuts to literally 1 year later, because it makes sure to tell us that. One of the generals from RPM brings in Scrozzle, who was apparently hiding out in their dimension. Nate has become the new commander of Battle Force. Whatever. He becomes the new commander. It's implied that Nate and Zoe are still dating, but that's just really it. And they're working together to make more green energy stuff. They kind of make it seem like they didn't do anything more with the Morphex towers, which I don't get, because I get why it would be an issue with Vinchix still around, because he was the virus and was trying to take control of it. But now that he's dead, why not just rebuild the towers and use the morphing grid energy again? It was apparently really effective, but they're just like, nope, we're just going to stick with like wind and solar power. Okay. Ravi is closer with his mom. That's about it. Steel is somehow a movie actor, and the series ends with basically everyone starting to get a call to meet back up at the headquarters. And in the middle of the shoot, Steel is like, hey, I got to go back to headquarters. And he calls on his stunt double to finish his scene for him. And the stunt double turns out to be Blaze. And it's funny, too, because Blaze and the person who plays the human Steel are have very different body types. Like, Blaze is like a good foot taller than him and is a little bit more bulky. But it's like, no, he puts on like a brown wig, and he's like, yeah, no, he's totes Steel now. But Steel goes back to the headquarters, and it's revealed that the summons was actually about a surprise birthday party for Steel, since it's been 1 year since he became a real boy. And that's it. That's the end of the series. That's literally how it ends. They're just like, yeah, happy birthday. And then he's like, cool, I'm so glad to be human. And that's it. And I thought it was kind of a dick move, because it's like, okay, they disrupted that movie shoot, and they also didn't invite Blaze, who was one of their friends. So yeah, no, that's really, really dumb. But yeah, that's how the series ends. And like I said, it wasn't very good. It wasn't god awful, but it's just so bland. It fell into bland territory. Again, it kind of had this like almost artificial feel to it, because it just was so paint by numbers. To kind of go over quickly the characters and whatnot, the villains are kind of dumb. I didn't care for Evox / Vengix. I liked the idea of him being Vengix, but again, they didn't do anything with that until the literally last episode. So what was the point of that? Roxy and Blaze, they just kind of became generic. We are totes. Their whole personality was like, we're way stronger than the Rangers, but they always keep getting defeated. The real Roxy and Blaze don't do anything. Like I said, there was like really no point of reviving them because, again, they don't do anything. They just show up every once in a while, just establish that they do in fact exist, and that's it. So they're kind of worthless. Scrozzle is just, again, he's kind of like the MacGuffin guy. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't really be able to do anything. And their whole plan just kind of seemed like they could have accomplished it way sooner. But, yeah, those was the villains. They're just kind of there, and they're villains for, they were the villains there to be the villains. That was it. I was not compelled, wasn't interested. Referring to the characters, again, there's just kind of like one note, almost tropes. Devin he does kind of everything, it feels like. And, but he doesn't really have much of a personality. He has like friction with his dad at first because his dad kind of feels like he's a slacker, but he's actually the Red Ranger, but he can't tell him that for whatever reason until he finds out. And he's a gamer, and that's about all we know about him. He just kind of does that. Like, can't describe his personality because he's just kind of generic. He's just generic good guy. I can't even, I was going to say he's like happy-go-lucky, but I've seen happy-go-lucky characters, and he's just kind of like, no, he does what he's supposed to do. He has fun, but it's just, again, kind of generic fun. So I can't really say that's his personality. So he's just kind of a protagonist. That's it. And the fact that he becomes the commander does not feel warranted. Like Ravi should have been the commander character at the end. Ravi has definitely the most personality and most, development, you would say, but it's not much. And unfortunately, his actor isn't that great at acting. Like, he's not terrible, but you can tell he's acting. He's like, what? We've got to do this now. Let's go, guys. He kind of talks like that. I mean, I have nothing against the actor. It's just, again, it feels like he's acting. So that's a problem. But Ravi's character, his whole thing is, he's basically been trained for this to become a ranger for a while. His mom is very strict, and he's been basically like the good soldier, but he does have his quirks about him that he hides. Like, he's a painter and he loves to paint, but he hides it from his mom because he feels that she thinks it's a waste of time. But he really likes it. His whole relationship with Roxy is very surface level. It's just they are dating, but that is it. And honestly, I was going to say, like, there's really no negative messages here and there. Like, they kind of do the generic messages of, like, tell the truth, be a good person, blah, 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 don't litter, all that good crap kind of thing. It's very surface level with those as well, but they're not harmful. The only one that I was like kind of got actively mad was with Ravi. What ends up happening in this episode is it's Ravi's and Roxy's anniversary, and he's going to meet her, and he has his anniversary gift is a painting that he made of her. And he's, for some reason, is on this park bench, and this little old lady shows up, and she's talking to him, and he's waiting, and I thought he was like waiting for the bus or for Roxy, but it turns out he's waiting for, I guess, a taxi, because he gets a call from Roxy telling him to show up, and he immediately gets a cab. So I don't know if he was waiting for the cab or he was waiting for the call. But yeah, he ends up getting up, goes to the cab, and he ends up forgetting his painting, which is so funny because the painting is big. Like he has it in like almost a suitcase kind of thing. And he even stops and turns around and says goodbye to the little old lady. So he has to see it on the bench, but he still forgets it. And luckily for him, he wrote his phone number on the suitcase, so the little old lady is able to contact him. But he ends up getting to his date with Roxy, and Roxy gives him a gift, has like a kind of like a special little dinner thing going on. And when she asks about like what did he get for her, he says it in such a stupid way. He's like, yeah, I don't have anything for you right now, like that. He says it like that and makes it sound like he completely forgot or he didn't care. And he won't clarify at all. Like it would take 10 seconds. Like, oh, hey, I accidentally forgot your gift, but this person found it and they're going to bring it back to me. That's all he had to say. And there's no conflict. But of course, they don't do that. What ends up happening is he gets up to get a drink, and Roxy sees that his phone goes off, and she looks at it real quick and sees that it's a message from a woman named Stacy, who is weirdly talking almost in a flirtatious way, going like, oh my God, I love your painting. The gift is amazing. Heart, winky face. And I'm like, okay, Stacy. But Robbie then comes back and gets so mad at Roxy, like almost abusively mad, like going like, how dare you look at my phone? Don't you trust me? And she's like, points out like, hey, who is Stacy and why is she saying this type of stuff? And he won't clarify. He just keeps getting more and more angry and basically blames her and storms off. And the entire episode is him getting pissed off. And by the end of it, when it's revealed that Stacy is the little old lady, Roxy apologizes to Ravi. It's like, no, like I could like apologizing for a misunderstanding is one thing, but he's just being a dick, like completely and utterly. But he ends up calming down, and then they're like, yay, we're in love. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And it's just like, he is so in the wrong. He does apologize, but it feels kind of like, oh, I should apologize for the sake of apologizing. It doesn't feel like he actually learned a lesson. It's just like, wow, that's a crappy lesson, guys. It's no, hey, keep secrets from your lovers, and if they question you, get mad at them, and it'll all work out. Like, what the crap, guys? But yeah, he has the most development, but that's about it. Again, he's just kind of like the dutiful soldier guy. He wants to do art, and he's kind of scared of his mom's, ire kind of thing. But that's all his character, which again tells you just how utterly how much of a lack of character everyone else has, seeing as the fact that he is almost the one. He's like the second or third most developed character out of the 5 Rangers. The next one is Zoe. She is there. She doesn't have a personality. She's just kind of she's caring, I guess. She will kind of cover for people when they make mistakes. And when she makes her own mistakes, she'll go out of her way to try and fix them kind of thing. They try to push this thing at the very end that she's like super into solving big problems, but you don't really see that throughout the series. Again, it's just kind of like little things, and she's apparently in love with Nate. That's it. But again, we only see like 3 episodes where that is is something. But that's her character. That is her character. She's caring. She likes Nate. That's about it. Moving on. The next character is Nate. He's okay. Again, I kind of feel like they just kind of didn't know what to do with him. He's the nerdy scientist guy. He basically makes all of the good guys as weapons and whatnot. He's a little, I want to say he's not antisocial, but he's also not, it's kind of hard to describe him because again, these characters are only their trope essentially. He's not socially awkward because I'm thinking like, oh, he's kind of socially awkward, right? But he's really not because he's able to interact with almost everyone except for the times where they just want him to not be able to do that. Like I said, thinks that Steel is essentially his brother because they share DNA. But again, he goes so gung-ho with it immediately that you can't build upon it. It's just instantly like, I am your brother. And it's actually funny too, because like the very next episode after Steel is a character, basically the government says, hey, you got Grid Battle Force says like, hey, you got to get rid of him because Venjix wants to use him as his body, and that would be really bad if that would happen. So they're telling him to decommission him, and everyone is like on Steel's side and are like, no, he's like our brother in arms. We love him. It's like, you've known him for a day. Like, I'm not saying you should kill him or anything like that, but the fact that you guys are like basically going like, I would die for him is so dumb after a single day. And Nate ends up like pouring out his soul to the general guy, saying like, he's my brother and all of this stuff and the bonds of family, all of this stuff. And I'm just like, again, you guys known each other for a day. If you were going to do this, you should have had at least like 3 or 4 episodes to establish your guys' relationship and then do this. So that way it feels more natural, not just, again, we've known this guy for a day, I will die for him. So, yeah. So, wasted opportunity with him. There's a thing with his parents that they're not around really, and he wants to really interact with them, but it doesn't go anywhere. And again, he's apparently in love with Zoe, but again, nothing really comes of that. That's about it for him. That's it for Nate. That's his character. Final character is Steel. He is probably my favorite character. I like that he's a robot, but they don't go the route of like, he is a robot trying to learn what is the human. He basically from the get-go thinks he's more or less a human in a robot body. And his whole thing is that he wants to experience different human activities to reaffirm that he is human. So I kind of like that aspect of him, instead of, again, just the puppet who wants to be the real boy kind of thing. He's like, no, he feels that he is the real boy, and he just wants to experience it for himself. So I do like that aspect about him, and he's kind of cocky. He has this almost Gaston-like attitude where he's like, yes, I am the best. I'm quite amazing, aren't I? Yes, He kind of talks like that, too. And I actually do, again, I actually kind of like him. And there's even an episode which I wish was more of the norm with like the regular episodes where him and Nate switch bodies and he's able to become he's able to experience what it's like to be an actual human. And there's a part where they're in this like juice bar gym place that they usually hang out with, and he drinks a bunch of different drinks that are supposed to be gross, but because he's never drunk anything, he basically loves everything because he's more in love with the actual human experience than the drink itself. And then he bursts out into a song number, and it becomes like this rockin' like Grease 50s type musical number, and it's really cheesy, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm like, why couldn't we have had more of this? This is the crap I want. Like, let's have some fun with this. But yeah, that's it for the fun part, the fun goofy part. He ends up getting back into his body. Like I said, at the end of the series, he ends up becoming a real boy, and for some reason he ends up becoming an actor. That's it. And that's it. Like I said, he's probably my favorite character. I wish they would have done a little bit more with him. But I did like him overall. And that's it. I already kind of gave my thoughts on Betty and Ben. I hated them. They never do anything. They're worthless. They're a liability. The commander, she's just there. She's just the gruff authoritarian type character who, at the end of the episode, whenever they have an issue with her, will instantly like, you know what? You're right. I will change my ways. I now understand the youth. But yeah, that's about it for Power Rangers Beast Morphers. It was completely okay. I want to, you know what? No, I'm not gonna say it's okay. It was bad. It was pretty mediocre. It's not terrible, but if you're interested in getting back into Power Rangers, or you have children that you might want to introduce to Power Rangers, skip Beast Morphers. It's not good. I would go with Dino Charge, Dino Fury that's playing right now. Basically, any of the dinosaur ones are usually a safe bet for Power Rangers. Give those a looky-loo if you want to get into Power Rangers again. But yeah, those are my thoughts and feelings about it. I didn't even really describe the Ranger suits. They're kind of boring, to be honest. They kind of look like workout gear, and their helmets have like a like sunglasses feel to them around the helmets, but that's about it. They're pretty bland. But yeah, those were my thoughts and feelings about Power Rangers Beast Morphers. I definitely like Dino Fury so far more. I hope that series doesn't disappoint me. I'll still make some rough rants about that one. Let me know what you think about what you thought about Beast Morphers or this rant in general. Comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know if you would like me to talk about any other type of Power Ranger series. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Bye.